Thank you so much. I'm excited to be on the show. My name is Shireen. I'm a master sales coach and trainer, and my consulting business is Real Talk Sales Consulting. And I work with dentists and plastic surgeons, and I help them to increase revenue. And my specialty is increasing same-day sales and collecting on treatment in full.
Cool.
So my tribe members are treatment plan coordinators and really helping them to build their skill set to be able to win and increase revenue within the practices they work in.
And how'd you get into sales?
Well, I mean, let's face it, sales is essentially in every industry, right? I have sort of a unique background because I was a mental health therapist for 10 years. And having a clinical background has actually been the secret sauce to my ability to be so successful in sales. And unfortunately, even though it was gratifying work, it wasn't financially gratifying for me. And so I started selling real estate and then started working for a plastic surgeon. I worked at Lifestyle Lift, and then I stumbled upon one of a very well-known national brand implant corporation. And that kind of put me on the map, and here I am now teaching and training and coaching what I love best. So I'm sort of kind of weaning my way out of sales and more so wanting to teach and train what I do.
Yeah, but you still have to sell yourself, right?
I still have to sell myself, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about that clinical experience and how that helped you become good at sales.
Mm-hmm. So, when you are a therapist, right, you are essentially having to extract information from that patient and helping them to change. And there's a lot of what we call rolling with resistance. And I didn't realize it at that time, the parallel, being a clinician and how that relates to the sales industry. And a lot of people think selling is pressuring, but it's all relationships, yes. Right? It's all being able to listen. And as a clinician, as a therapist, you do a lot of listening. And so what I teach my clients to do is to really imagine like you are in a clinical setting, that your customer, your client is laying back, in that chase, if you will. And you need to stop talking and allow that customer, that client, that patient to open up to you. And that's where the sale is. It's all behind the conversation and the connection.
Yeah. And that's a hard skill to learn because it's really peeling the layer back, not too fast, but, keeping the pattern going and coming up with great questions.
Exactly. And open-ended questions, so that the more open-ended those questions are, and because it's very tempting to kind of like cut the person off, right? Because you see an opportunity to try to sell either yourself or the product. But yeah, it takes a lot of discipline.
Right. You just can't tell the patient what to do.
Right. Exactly.
Quit eating so much.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Exactly.
Dump that bum.
That's right. You're right.
But have you started selling to plastic surgeons and dentists now?
I have, yeah. And so, most of my career has been working in the dental industry. And so, I mean, it's interesting because when I ask a dentist if he or she sees themselves in a sales-oriented business, some dentists have to like pause for a moment. They don't really see their business as a mini sales organization. And that's what revenue is, right? And so I talk to enough dentists and enough plastic surgeons that unfortunately are having sleepless nights. But then when they meet me and they realize that the yoke of their practice are the treatment plan coordinators, and the more skill set they have, and the more that they see that what they're doing is relationship selling, they start to notice that cases are able to be closed, right? Case acceptance increases. When case acceptance increases, revenue goes up, right? Yep. And everybody loves that.
And have you come up with a system to do this?
I do, yeah. So my system is called the Real Talk Selling Method. And so basically it's really what I say is describing you're turning a stranger into a friend. And what's unique about my selling system is, especially in the world of consultative sales, you're used to scheduling an appointment and then closing the patient when they come in. With my selling, with Real Talk selling, you're actually converting and closing the patient at first substantial contact, which is over the phone. Okay. And so REAL, that acronym, the R stands for reassure. So you're going to make sure that you communicate a message that that person, that customer, that client is in the right place. And then the E in REAL stands for enchant. That's when the conversation, you're having an enchanting conversation and you're going to make a captivating statement. And an example of that would be to say, I'm so happy you found us. You're in the right place, right? And then A is assess, where we're going to assess the needs of that particular patient or that client. And then L stands for lead, right? Because a lot of patients and customers, they want to be led.
Yes.
Right. And so, and that once we get all that information, what I tell people is just imagine your customer, their hand is on your shoulder and you're leading them to the ultimate goal of whatever it is that they're looking for.
Okay. And how long do these calls take?
They can take, part of the first step in the process is framing how long it may be. And I train my salespeople to say this call could be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah. Okay. Because the idea is we're both along for the ride. I mean, I've had conversations with a patient that lasted an hour and 15 minutes, but at the end of that call, the patient was already, I'll give an example. So if this was a situation where a patient needed dental work, let's say, for example, I don't even talk dental maybe until about 20 to 25 minutes into the conversation. The first 20 minutes is really establishing rapport, really finding out the pain points. So tell me why you're calling today, and finding out the real reason. So it's not that you're in pain physically, but there might be an emotional pain, an emotional component, right? Talk to me a little bit about how long you've been actually thinking about doing this. So this can go back years sometimes, right? And then I'm finding out in the process as we're going through these discovery questions, I'm finding out about their family, I'm finding out about their profession, I'm finding out about their dreams, where they're hoping they could go, so it just unravels,
And how do you get them get a little bit more deeper than them just, no, I'm just curious about this thing, just want to learn about it?
Then I would say, well, tell me what you've heard so far. Talk to me a little bit about your understanding right now, right? Okay. I don't let people off the hook because a lot of people will say, well, I just want to know, how much it is. I want to know the cost, because it's so funny. I was in Costa Rica. I actually just got back yesterday and I was training some amazing treatment coordinators. And you have to think a lot of salespeople from Costa Rica, they're talking to people in other locations in the US, Canada, Mexico, and they have to sell over the phone. And it was interesting. They were very quick to talk dental. And I said, you gotta resist that urge, right? If someone presses and they want to talk price, we got to figure out why that is so important. What is that all about?
Right. Because they want to view it as a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? How does it work? What's it cost?
Right. Exactly.
But they're not going to make a decision if that's the level they're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We've got to get to that goal, the goal behind the goal, what I say, right? Yeah. And usually there's something a lot deeper. I myself have sort of an interesting story because I'm a weight loss surgery patient. I lost 115 pounds 11 years ago. And my sales methodology was actually created as a result of my personal experience, because I was just like a lot of the patients that I try to help or used to help, and my clients try to help online, looking for someone looking for answers, until one day, probably one of the best treatment plan coordinators out there, wherever she is, picked up the phone. And instead of saying to me, Shireen, you have to come in for a consult, or dismissing me, right? She said, oh, I'm so happy you're calling. And she took me on this amazing journey that lasted about 45 minutes. And then by the time I got off the phone with her, I knew exactly what weight loss surgery procedure I wanted. I knew when I wanted to do it. The only problem was I didn't realize I was calling a facility in Oklahoma. Okay. I'm in North Carolina. So she said, Shireen.
It's a long drive.
Yeah, she said, yeah. And she says, well, great. You ready to go? You ready to go? So next step, we got to get you in here. She says, where are you? I said, I'm in Charlotte. She said, Shireen, you're calling Oklahoma. She says, well, wait a minute. No problem. I will find a surgeon in the Charlotte area for you. And I cut her off and I said, wait a minute. If I'm willing to fly all the way to Oklahoma for this surgery, will you do it? And she says, well, we don't typically. I said, I'm not asking you that. And she said, we'll do it, but you may not get the insurance approved. I said, it doesn't matter. How much is it if I have to pay cash? She said, it'll be $10,000. I said, let's do it. And I flew all the way to Oklahoma with my family to have weight loss surgery, one of the riskiest surgeries in the world. And if it wasn't for her taking me on that journey, it may have never happened.
Right.
So that's the power, right? That's the power of a relationship. Didn't matter that I could have had it up the street. I fell in love with her. I didn't even know who the doctor was. I didn't meet him until the day before I had surgery, you know?
Right.
So kind of a crazy story, but it's the truth.
That's the power of rapport, which is trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, and when we're talking about their personal health and physical body,
yeah,
you got to have that rapport.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
What other questions will get to that why behind the why?
I ask patients, I really like to see how their situation affects them personally or professionally or socially, right? And it's interesting, a lot of people, when they talk about professionally, they may say, well, not having the smile of my dreams has made me so self-conscious that as a salesperson, I can't engage my clients. Or if it's a manager that is embarrassed, they may say, I can't even communicate with my employees and I've missed opportunities for promotions, right? And then once, you know, with my sales methodology, once you get really, really good and you talk about personally, then you could get into relationships. You can even say, when was the last time you kissed your wife passionately? You know, I've asked that question. And, you know, it's kind of a risky move, but sometimes that breaks barriers, right? But you have to earn the right to get to those questions, right? Which is why it has to be very systematic, the steps and knowing when to ask what question and how to do it, right? You know, and it takes practice. It's not something that you learn in like a day, right? The more you do it, the more you role play. You know, I offer virtual coaching. So I could be coaching a treatment coordinator in California, be sitting here watching consultations in North Carolina. And to see the transformation of how treatment coordinators really improve over time is pretty amazing to me when they really practice themselves on video.
And do you encourage them not to move forward to the next stage until they have that rapport, that why behind the why?
Yes. I mean, ultimately, yeah. I mean, that's, you know, you have to kind of feel it, you know, but yes, you have to get the why, however long it takes, you know, because that why has to be communicated and in my industry to the doctor, right? Because the doctor needs to know the why. And if the doctor knows the why, that makes his job, his or her job, easier. That gives a reason and an ability for them to connect with the patient, right? I mean, so yes, you know, I think it's very tempting if you struggle to get it to just say, well, forget it, right? Like, I'm just going to move on. but that's the discipline.
Yeah, because it's very easy to fall into the how does it work? How does it
Hmm.
compare? What
Yeah.
is it? And how much
Yeah.
does it
Tell me the
cost?
features and benefits,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
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 And now leading them through this process, what's the likelihood of them doing it if you don't get a commitment on that call?
Well, I mean, if you can't get to the root, I mean, more than likely you're not going to get it, right?
Yeah,
But if you don't, my thing is, which is what I love about my sales methodology, is my ultimate goal is to help patients move forward the same day. And I stay busy as a salesperson. You stay busy and you're playing round robin, trying to catch that person and follow up calls and emails and things of that nature. So then you end up chasing the sale. You ultimately want to try to get the commitment the same day, respectfully, if you can. But if you leave the conversation not really having a true understanding of why that person doesn't want to do it, you can't get to the root cause of it, it does make it difficult. That you ultimately may end up losing that person to your competitor up the street.
yeah. And because when they call, they've really kind of made up their mind. They want it.
They want it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't just, they can go online to figure out how it works and the average cost or roundabout cost and
Sure.
what other people say about it.
Exactly.
They need,
I can hear it. I mean, when I speak to people over the phone, I can hear how much they want it, but I can also hear how badly they're waiting for someone to give them the information, right? It's like, I think as salespeople, sometimes you feel like you're bothering or badgering, but I see it as I'm serving you. I see it as a service because if people picking up the phone, they want to be served truly.
and they kind of want their hand held through the process.
They do.
Because their conscious mind is saying, I want this, but their unconscious mind is saying, it can wait a year.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, they want it, but yeah, they're kind of looking for a way out. Right. And that's why as a salesperson, you have to have a really great skill set to be able to know that your job is to serve the patient, to give them what they ultimately need. And to not let them off the hook if it's in their best interest to have it and you have it to present it to them,
And how long have you found this skill set does it take to learn? Or is it just something that you just polish and it gets better and better and it requires practice?
I mean, listen, I'll tell you, I had some of the best training in the world. I worked for Clear Choice Dental Implant Center. They offer the best training. It took me 8 months to learn the way that I was trained with them, which my methodology is different. Learning is in the world of sales is a lifelong process, right? It doesn't stop. Even now working for myself, I'm going to invest in my business and in my skill set to be the best sales coach I can be, because you can always learn. So it's ongoing. Right? My sales methodology may take someone, depending upon whether they're foundational or intermediate or mastery, it could take a year or more.
Yeah. And do you think you'd find it easier to learn if the existing habits weren't already there?
Is it easier to learn if the existing habits aren't already there? It depends on the person. I mean, with my sales methodology, it's really works really great in the consultative sales environment, right? So if I'm training someone who's sort of, business to business, it's going to be a different type of sale, but still the principles can be applied, right? With time and practice.
Yeah. You got to get to that emotion, what's behind it.
Yeah.
And I think we all get stuck in the commodity trap of how it is and how does it work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And how do you find selling to dentists?
I think working with the dentist, they want the help, right?
Yeah.
I think that the fear of investing in a training system is kind of like, is it going to work, right? And it's the fear of getting the buy-in from the entire team.
Yeah.
When I step into a dental office, my system is very different. And it feels different to kind of like think, okay, but it's dentistry, but we're selling, but I don't want to be salesy, but I don't want to offend anyone. But then when they see lives changed as a result of it, and I don't ever ask people to buy from me, and I train my trainees to never ask for the sale.
Right.
That if it just is this like authentic, like back and forth, that when it comes time for them to make a decision, it should just organically happen.
Yeah.
And so when dentists see it, then they're like, okay, I'm a believer, right? Plastic surgeons too, because it's medical. So medical and sales, it's still hard to see how those two come together.
And it's communication.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Versus, I think when people hear the word selling, it triggers an image that is orthogonal to medicine.
Yes.
As opposed to therapy.
Yes.
But what's therapy?
Right, exactly. It's selling someone on a changed behavior that they don't want to change, right? I mean, it's in every business,
Yeah.
right? But I think you're right. People hear sales and they have this image of a car salesman and someone who's like
Pitching.
wearing
Talking.
right, and manipulative, right, and trickery, and that's not what it's all about.
And would you say that there's science behind this? Do you try and connect it to like neuroscience or psychology or?
I think psychology, sure. I haven't gone too deep into it,
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly, when I went to grad school to get my master's degree in social work, certainly was not thinking about sales in that perspective, right? Never saw myself as a salesperson, right? But when I transitioned from clinical work to sales, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, people are like, Shireen, your rapport, your ability to connect and talk to people and tap into the mind of, almost like get that buy now impulse. Like clearly it's all intertwined. It's all cognitive behavioral focused.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that. I'm also certified in emotional intelligence. So that plays a key as well. I mean, it's pretty mind blowing,
It is. And not many people, people will read books and listen to podcasts, but it is a skill set.
Yeah.
Curiosity and interest.
Yeah.
And, the other minds, that concept from psychology.
Yeah.
They say,
well, I think too, for me, I mean, I kind of get into it. I really enjoy people, right? So it also has to be sort of like an innate interest.
Yeah.
I enjoy really kind of finding out where people started, where they're from. I sometimes get really wrapped up in hearing their story. And when the person across the table sees that there's a genuine interest, right? There's that trust there as well. People can see through whether someone really genuinely loves what they do,
Yeah. And it's that interest that builds rapport.
Exactly.
That gets them talking about themselves.
Right. Exactly.
And then you look for that point in their story that's triggering this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And build off of that to get, that their conscious mind strong enough to make a decision and overcome, the unconscious mind saying,
yeah,
let's put this on the list.
Exactly. But, and it's also not being afraid, because I was talking to one of the young ladies I was training in Costa Rica. And I said, the real benefit of extracting information and finding the goal behind the goal is that you earn the right then when that the thought in the person's mind says, I don't need to do this, you earn the right to challenge them then. And it doesn't feel confrontational. It feels like, listen, we've spent like 45 minutes on the phone, like dreaming together. Like, I'm not going to let you off the hook here because you've already told me it affects you in this way and that way, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And then you can say, like, why would you not?
Yeah.
Do this. You'd be crazy to not do this, right? And it doesn't feel like the first time you say it, you're like, did I just say that? But then when you can pull it off, it's all right,
Yeah. Or ask the question, what's going to happen if you don't do this?
Yeah.
How are you going to feel a month, a week, a year?
Yeah.
It's not going to get better on its own.
That's right. It won't. It's only going to get worse. And it may cost you more if you wait, right?
Yeah.
So when people use I can't afford it financially, I can't afford to not do this. And it's like, okay, waiting, you really can't afford to not do it.
Right.
Truly.
They wouldn't have called if they couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they pretty much know the ballpark.
Well, in dentistry, sometimes it's tough because sometimes they don't know, right?
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming because if there's a fear of dentistry and you haven't been in a while, things have sort of, might have deteriorated over time. And it can be a little like, wow, I had no idea it was going to cost that.
Yeah.
But that's where, as a treatment coordinator, you've got to be able to have a really robust financial conversation. And you've got to be able to really do your best to try to figure out where you can help the patient find the funds and empower them to make a decision that's going to change their lives.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where can
Thank
people
you so much.
Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your system?
Yes. So my business is Real Talk Sales Consulting, and you can go right to my website, which is realtalkselling.com.